Hello again, everyone. Welcome to Washington Gun Law TV. I'm Washington Gun Law President William Kirk. Thanks for joining us. Hey, last week, President Trump decided to designate Antifa as a terrorist organization. And I'm not here to be critical of that designation whatsoever, but I did have an opportunity to go back and take a look at the legal framework, take a look at the laws. How do we designate organizations as terrorist organizations? And well, unfortunately, much like with the president's order on flag burning, it's a great idea that right now I don't think is legally possible. So today, let's geek out on the law and let's talk about, can Trump really designate Antifa as a terrorist organization? Okay, everyone, let's remember that all the research we did for this video was done at GroundNews. More information at the end of this video. All right, we are going to be talking about Antifa. Some of you may have heard of them. Some of you may not even know anything about them. This is an organization that uses the most fastest of techniques humanly imaginable, including violence, on a routine basis to apparently be anti-fascist. All right. Now, on September 17th, President Trump announced that he was going to designate Antifa as a terrorist organization. And again, I said at the very beginning of the video, I'm not being critical of that decision. Myself, I'm kind of thrilled about it. Why is that? Well, because you see, Antifa is indigenous to my part of the country. So much like if you wanted to go see lions in their natural habitat, you would probably go to the Serengeti. If you want to see Antifa in their natural habitat, you come to the Pacific Northwest, primarily outside of an ICE detention facility or any other place that has the audacity to express any conservative or Christian ideals. But is there actually a legal method by which President Trump could designate Antifa as a terrorist organization? Unfortunately, my research shows me that the answer is no, there isn't. Now, you guys are all sitting there going, but wait a second, we designate organizations all the time as terrorist organizations. We do. They're called FTOs, foreign terrorist organizations. You see, under the Anti-Terrorism and Effective Death Penalty Act of 1996, codified in 8 United States Code, Section 1189, the federal government is in fact entitled to designate foreign organizations as terrorist organizations, and that has significant legal consequences. Now, in 2020, while running cover for Antifa, then FBI Director Chris Wray testified before Congress that he did not even believe Antifa was actually an organization, but rather a movement. Then again, Chris Wray is on the record of saying a lot of ridiculous things, a lot of things that have since been disproven. So what do we take of that? But in the statute, there is certain criteria that must be met in order for an organization to then be designated as a foreign terrorist organization. And they include: 1, they're a foreign organization. 2, they engage in terrorist activities. 3, they pose a threat to national security. And hey, listen, to quote one of my favorite singers of all time, Meatloaf, 2 out of 3 ain't bad. But the problem is that any designation as an FTO falls apart right here at the first criteria because they are a domestic organization, not a foreign organization. There is a process, too, by the way, in which organizations can be designated as foreign terrorist organizations. That starts with the Secretary of State actually making the designation. Now, there could be possible consultation with other agencies, Department of Homeland Security, Department of Defense, various other agencies that might weigh in on it. And after that consultation is then concluded, they are then formally listed as a foreign terrorist organization. And the list is a long one, and many of the names on the list are organizations that you are abundantly familiar with. Now, being designated a foreign terrorist organization has significant legal consequences because, number one, it does allow the United States government to either block and or seize assets. Number two, it criminalizes any type of support, financial or otherwise, to any one of these foreign terrorist organizations. So it subjects Americans to criminal liability who want to offer support to foreign terrorist organizations. And finally, it has significant immigration consequences because if you are connected, even in the slightest way, to a foreign terrorist organization under proper United States immigration laws, you're not going to get let in. Now, let us also remember that during his first term in 2020, President Trump also talked quite vociferously about designating Antifa as a terrorist organization. It never came to fruition. Why is that? Well, it's because there's no legal method to do that. So if in fact we really want to designate Antifa a terrorist organization, the first thing we're going to need is Congress to pass large amounts of legislation that provides a legal path on how to do that. It would also need to create, obviously, the legal authority for some elected official to make those designations. But what is the likelihood of that occurring? Well, somewhere between slim and none. Now again, I want everyone to understand that I don't have a problem with designating Antifa as a terrorist organization. I have seen what they have done right here in my own backyard. And candidly, if there was ever a domestic organization that deserves to be labeled as a terrorist organization, it probably is Antifa. And while I get that many of you may be adamant that, well, we should have this kind of legislation and we should have this kind of legal authority, and I'm not necessarily saying you're wrong, but this is the part in the video where we get to the old consider this, okay? And what I want you to consider is this, because if we were ever in a situation where the United States government did have the authority to declare a domestic organization as a terrorist organization and thus criminalize any type of financial or other support of that organization, consider this. What happens when the shoe's on the other foot? What happens when you have an administration much like the Biden administration who actually does want to weaponize the government in any way humanly possible to combat what they perceive to be political enemies, or some people might just call the opposition to their ideas? And the truth of the matter is that when you take a look again at the map where Antifa is most indigenous to, you will see that it happens to coincide oftentimes with places that have incredibly soft on crime policies and in many instances have absolutely defunded their police departments. So whether you agree or disagree that Antifa should be designated as a terrorist organization, it's mildly irrelevant at the current time unless Congress passes significant legislation that actually allows people in DC to designate domestic organizations as terrorist organizations. Okay, everything we use to formulate our ideas in making this video, we're going to link up down below. If you got any other questions about this or the kind of stuff we normally talk about here at Washington Gun Law, you should know how to get a hold of us by now, but if you don't, that information is down there in the description box. If you got an idea for a video, we'd want to hear about it. Click on that link right there and tell us all about it. If you want to subscribe to our monthly newsletter, the ability to do that is down there in the description box. And then finally, and most importantly, let's all remember that part of being the lawful and responsible gun owner, like we talk about here normally, is to know what the law is in every situation, how it applies to you in any instance that you may find yourself. Until next time, thanks for watching and stay safe. Okay, let's remember, like always, all the research we did for today's video was done where? That's right, at GroundNews. Why is that? Well, I like to get treated like an adult, and I bet you do too. And when you have a platform that's going to scour over 50,000 independent news sources and give you a biased distribution breakdown, let you know how the headlines are being manipulated, oh my gosh, it actually allows you to make up your own mind. Check out the blind spot. This will show you stories that are being disproportionately reported by one side of the political spectrum or the other. And right now, you can get every feature that GroundNews has to offer through a Vantage Plan at 40% off. And all you got to do is go to ground.news/Washington or scan this QR code right here. Listen, if you're finally ready to break free from media manipulation, visit my friends today at ground.news/Washington.